Evan never planned to stay late at the office party. He wasn't the kind of man who enjoyed loud music or fake laughter, but as he stood near the bar that night, watching James slump forward with his head nearly touching the counter, something inside him twisted. Everyone else stepped around James like he wasn't even there. Some whispered, some laughed, no one reached out. Then a thought hit Evan like a jolt. If he left James alone like this, something terrible could happen. That fear, sharp and sudden, became the beginning of everything that followed. He walked over, grabbed James' jacket, and tried to pull him upright. The older man's eyes were glassy, unfocused, his speech messy. James was in his mid-40s, broad-shouldered, the kind of man who once looked unbreakable. But tonight, he looked small, lost. "Come on, man," Evan said, voice firm. "Let's get you home." Quote. James blinked in slow confusion. "You're a good man, Evan. I can walk." He could not. 5 minutes later, Evan was dragging him toward the car, the December cold cutting through his coat. Snowflakes drifted in the streetlights and his breath turned white in the air. James leaned on him like a heavy, tired child. He wasn't Evan's close friend, just a coworker who told bad jokes and brought donuts on Fridays. But watching him alone and ignored by everyone felt wrong. It was easier to look away. But Evan could not. The drive through the quiet streets felt heavy. James mumbled half-words, drifting in and out of sleep. When they reached the house, a small, warm-looking home tucked behind maple trees, Evan felt a strange mix of relief and worry. He knocked. The door opened, and a woman stood there. She looked around 40, dark hair pulled into a loose bun. Soft lines around her eyes that came from sleepless nights, not age. She wore a simple sweater, but there was a quiet grace about her. Mature, calm, beautiful in a way that did not try to be. Her tired expression broke the moment she saw her husband. "Oh, thank God," she breathed, rushing forward. Her voice trembled with fear and love. Together they guided James inside. Evan helped lower him onto the couch, covering him with a blanket. As he turned to leave, she spoke again. "Wait." He stopped. Her eyes met his, warm and shining. "Thank you. You didn't have to do this." "It's nothing," Evan said. "I just wanted to make sure he was safe." Her lips trembled. "It's not nothing. He's been struggling. You might have saved him from something worse." The weight in her words made Evan pause. "I'm sorry," he said softly. "I didn't know." She shook her head. "You couldn't have. His brother died 2 months ago. Ever since then, he's been drowning himself in work and whiskey." Evan looked at James, now breathing evenly under the soft glow of the fireplace. "I had no idea." "He talks about you," she whispered. "Me?" Quote. "Yes, he says you treat him like he's still normal, not broken." Those words hit Evan harder than he expected. He swallowed. "He's a good man, just lost." She nodded, tears gathering. "You're one of the few people who hasn't given up on him." She moved toward a small shelf filled with photos. James and his brother smiling in the woods. Christmas mornings, laughter frozen in time. "He needs people like you," she said. "People who care." Quote. When she turned back, her smile was soft but full of gratitude. "Can I offer you something? Coffee?" Quote. Evan hesitated, but something in her eyes made him stay. "Coffee sounds great." Quote. They sat together in the quiet living room, the only sound, the ticking clock, and the crackle of the fire. She poured 2 mugs, hands steady but tired. They talked. Not much. She spoke about how grief had reshaped their lives, how heavy love could feel when someone was falling apart, how she tried to hold everything together. Evan listened. He noticed small things, the gentle tone of her voice, the way she looked at her husband with both frustration and deep love, the strength beneath her exhaustion. There was something else, too, a warmth in her eyes when she looked at Evan. Not romantic, but recognizing something good in him that he rarely saw in himself. When he stood to leave, she walked him to the door. The cold air rushed in, making her shiver. She placed a hand on his arm, light and careful. "You reminded me tonight that kindness still exists. I won't forget that." Her touch lingered for a moment longer than expected, And in that brief moment, Evan felt something spark inside him. A connection he couldn't explain. She was older, married, carrying grief and responsibility. He was younger, quieter, still figuring out his place in the world. They should have been strangers, yet somehow they weren't. As he stepped into the night, snow falling softly around him, he knew one thing. This night was not the end. It was the beginning of something he never saw coming. Monday morning felt different from the moment Evan walked into the office. The usual morning chatter filled the hallway, but when he reached his desk, he saw James walking toward him. He looked tired, eyes slightly red, but there was something new in his expression, something steady. "Hey," James said quietly. "Thank you for the other night." "My wife, she told me everything." Evan nodded. "Anytime." Quote. But before he could sit down, James added something that made him pause. "I'm getting help. I can't keep doing this." Those simple words carried a weight that made Evan smile. For the first time in weeks, James seemed alive. Still, as the day passed, Evan kept thinking about the woman he had met, about the way she looked at him with gratitude and something deeper, something unspoken. He tried to push the thought away, but it lingered. That evening, as he walked to his car, his phone buzzed. "Thank you again. He's sleeping early tonight. I can finally breathe a little." It was her. He typed back before he could stop himself. "I'm glad. You deserve some rest, too." He sat in the driver's seat for a moment, staring at the screen, feeling a warmth he didn't expect. She replied almost instantly. "If you ever need someone to talk to, you've been that for us." He hesitated, then wrote, "Same for you." He shouldn't have sent it, but he did. Days passed, and life settled into a routine. James started therapy. He began joining coworkers for lunch again. He laughed more. Slowly, he returned to himself. But the messages between Evan and the woman continued. Her name was Claire. She told him about the weight she carried, the late nights watching her husband drink himself numb, the fear of losing him like they had lost his brother, the loneliness that came with being strong for someone who couldn't stand. Evan listened. He shared small pieces of his own life, too, growing up far from family, feeling unseen, wondering if kindness mattered in a world that moved too fast. Their conversations were never inappropriate, but there was a closeness forming, a quiet bond. One evening, as he sat on his couch, his phone buzzed again. "Are you busy?" "No." "Could you stop by?" His heart skipped. He knew he should say no. She was married. This was dangerous ground. But her message continued. "He had a hard day. I could use some support." Evan stood up without thinking. 10 minutes later, he was knocking on their door again. When it opened, Claire stood there in a cardigan and jeans, hair down, eyes tired but warm. The house felt different tonight. The lights were low. The fireplace glowed softly. James was asleep on the couch, breathing heavily. "He drank again," she whispered. "Not as much, but it hurts to see him struggle." Evan stepped inside, unsure of what to say. Claire sat down near the fire, hugging her knees. He sat beside her, leaving space between them. The silence was gentle. After a moment, she looked at him, eyes shining. "You know," she said softly, "I don't think people understand how much it means when someone actually shows up." Evan met her gaze. "He's lucky to have you." Her voice trembled. "Sometimes I feel like I'm holding everything together with shaking hands." Without thinking, Evan reached out and gently touched her hand. She froze. He pulled back instantly, heart racing. "Sorry, I didn't mean—" Claire shook her head. "No, it's okay." Her voice was barely a whisper. Their eyes held. Time slowed. There was no music, no dramatic moment, just two people sitting in a quiet room, pain and gratitude woven between them. And then, something broke the stillness. A floorboard creaked. They both turned. James shifted slightly on the couch, mumbling in his sleep. The spell snapped. Claire stood quickly, wiping her eyes. "I should check on him." Evan nodded, rising to his feet. He shouldn't be here, not like this. As she walked him to the door, she paused. "Evan," she said gently, I don't know what would have happened if you hadn't brought him home that night. He swallowed. You don't have to thank me. Her expression softened. I'm not thanking you for that. She stepped closer, her voice trembling. I'm thanking you for seeing me. Those words hit him harder than anything she had said before. No one had ever said that to him, not in that way. He felt his chest tighten with emotion, confusion, and something dangerously close to longing. He stepped back, needing air. I should go. Quote. She nodded, but her eyes lingered on him with a warmth that scared him. When the door closed behind him, the cold night air hit his face. Snowflakes melted on his skin, but the heat in his chest remained. He walked to his car, heart pounding. He knew the truth now. This connection wasn't just kindness. It was something deeper, something neither of them should feel. But they did. The days after that night were heavy for Evan. He tried to focus on work, on numbers and emails, but his mind kept drifting back to Claire, to her quiet voice, to the way her eyes softened when she spoke to him, to the feeling of being seen in a way he hadn't felt in years. But every time those thoughts rose, guilt followed. She was married. She loved her husband. And James was fighting to get better. This wasn't his story to step into. Still, when Friday came, something unexpected happened. At lunch, James walked over to Evan's desk. His posture was straighter, his eyes clearer. He looked nervous but determined. Can we talk? He asked quietly. Evan nodded, stomach twisting. They stepped outside into the cold winter air. James shoved his hands into his coat pockets, breath forming clouds in front of him. I went to my first group session yesterday, he said. It was hard, but I needed it. Quote. Evan smiled. I'm proud of you. James nodded, then looked down. Claire told me how much you helped her too. Quote. Evan's heart stopped. His mind raced with fear, guilt, and worry. But James continued. She said you reminded her she wasn't alone, that someone cared enough to show up when things were falling apart. He looked up, eyes shining with gratitude. I didn't realize how far she'd been drifting until she told me. I was drowning in grief and pulling her down with me. His voice cracked. I almost lost her. Evan felt his chest tighten. You can still fix this, he said softly. James nodded slowly. I want to, I need to, and I'm going to fight for her. There was a long pause. Then something happened that Evan never expected. James reached out and pulled him into a hug. Thank you, he whispered, for saving me, for saving us. Evan stood frozen, emotion choking him. When they pulled apart, James wiped his eyes. I know you care about her, he said quietly. Evan's breath caught. But I also know you're the kind of man who would never hurt us. That's why I'm grateful she had you. Those words hit harder than any guilt ever could. Respect, trust, responsibility. Evan nodded, voice thick. I'll always be in your corner, both of you. That evening, as Evan walked to his car, his phone buzzed again. A message from Claire. Can you stop by? I want to thank you properly. He stared at the screen for a long moment. This time he didn't answer right away. He thought about the look in James' eyes, the way he held on to hope for the first time in months, the fight he was finally willing to make. Then Evan typed, I think the best way I can help is by giving you both space to heal. You two deserve that chance. There was a long pause. Then her reply came. You're a good man, Evan. Thank you, truly. He closed his eyes, letting the words settle. It hurt, more than he expected. But it felt right. Weeks passed, and things changed slowly. James became more present at work. His jokes returned, clumsy but sincere. He started joining people for lunch. His eyes no longer looked empty. Claire sent fewer messages, but when she did, they were filled with warmth. He's doing better. We're talking more. Thank you. One day, Evan received a photo. James and Claire smiling together on their porch, wrapped in blankets, a mug in each hand. The firelight glowed behind them. Under it, Claire had written, We're finding our way back. Evan stared at the picture for a long time, a bittersweet smile forming. He had wanted a connection, but what he gave was something far more important. A family rebuilding, a life saved, a marriage healing. Spring arrived, melting snow and brightening streets. One afternoon, As Evan sat in a cafe, sipping coffee alone, a woman approached his table. "Excuse me," she said with a shy smile. "Is this seat taken?" Quote. She looked to be around his age, warm-eyed, kind, holding a notebook and a hopeful expression. Evan gestured to the chair. "No, please." As she sat down, their eyes met, and something gentle sparked. Not intense, not forbidden, just natural, a beginning without guilt. He felt his heart loosen, open, breathe. Maybe kindness didn't only save others. Maybe it led you to where you were meant to be. That night when he walked home, the city lights reflected on the wet pavement just like they had months ago. But this time, he didn't feel lonely. He felt proud. He felt hopeful. He had given someone a chance to live, to love again. And in return, he found something he never expected. His own fresh start. Sometimes the most powerful kind of love is the kind that lets go, allowing others to heal and grow. And that is something he would never forget.